We're back.
Heyo.
I'm sorry for everyone's ears. Hey,
Welcome back to the
y'all.
After School Cinema Club. We are back from our little spring break retreats. Each and every one of us had the spring off for a little bit. I am Jose. I am your host for today, joined by Vaughn and Dylan as usual. Boys, how was the spring break?
A lot. Spring break was so much. I feel like responsible for the kickoff of spring break because I think I had the first break of the three of us. It was good though. I got a chance to go home, visit my family in DC, and then some of my family in DC. We took a trip as well to Aruba. So I was in the Caribbean for like a week, and then back home in DC for a little bit more time. Very rarely get a chance to go home, so it was nice to be home and then also do a trip within a trip. And I got a chance to go to New York and see one of my friends in a Broadway show. Shout out to Issa Camille Briones. Check her out on Goosebumps and Star Trek Picard, I think. Anywho, yeah, I got a chance to just let loose for a hot second, and then immediately once I got back, I got a chance to. I was in rehearsal for. I'm in a show for the Hollywood Fringe. More news about that later, I guess, or maybe this is the moment to. I'll do it now. So I'm in a show for the Hollywood Fringe. If you listen to this podcast and you live in Los Angeles, come check us out. It's starring your boy, and my co-star is Tiffany Smith. She is a very accomplished screen actor, and we are on a stage saying words to each other for about an hour and a half. If you check out, if you go to our pod and then go check out my page, Von Dexter M, on Instagram, there's a link to buy tickets. If you want to go to the show on the 18th, use discount code Black Star. It'll be half off. Yeah, but we've got 4 performances left. We had our preview a couple nights ago. Dylan got a chance to come check it out. He tells me to my face that he likes it. I trusted that that's what he's saying as well when he's not in front of my face. And yeah, it's a great hour and a half experience. I don't know, Dylan, do you have any other thoughts?
Well, I was gonna say, what's the name of the show?
Oh, that's important. It's the my brain. The name of the show is the Sphere of Fixed Stars in the Heavens. And yeah, it's got love, sci-fi, and pie.
Lots of pie.
Real pies?
Real pie.
Real pie.
All right, hot take. Favorite pie, go.
I'm basic. It's apple for me.
I'm particular to pecan.
If you know, you know.
For the 4 people that, at least at the time of recording, that get that reference. Thank you. But also actually pecan pie. Yeah.
Cool. Dylan?
My break was great. Real quick, Vaughn's show is legitimately very good. I just want to put that out there. Like, this is not just like Vaughn is absolutely incredible in it. It's a 2-person show, but it is a very, very good show. It's funny. Everyone was cracking up. The person that was in front of me legitimately did not stop laughing for all 90 minutes. Really interesting story. Please, if you live in LA, go and see it. If you don't live in LA, I still expect you to go and see it. But please support Vaughn. It is very, very good show. My break was solid. I went to the UK. All 3 of us went on international trips, which we'll get at. It's my first time doing like a completely solo European trip, or any really kind of like intense solo vacation. I loved it. As Jose makes fun of me for it all the time, I am the resident Anglophile of this podcast. No surprise that I absolutely adored being there. I was in Manchester and in London. It was a mostly personal trip with a little bit of like other stuff that I'm working on as well mixed in. But yeah, Manchester was great. London was great. If Brexit wasn't an issue and it was super easy to immigrate there, honestly, I would, but it's not. And now I'm stuck here. Oh, and I saw Dune and Furiosa at the BFI, which is like the biggest IMAX screen in the UK. It's like basically the same size, if not a little bit bigger than like Metreon in SF in Lincoln Square in New York. Furiosa amazing, unbelievable movie. Upset we don't really get to talk about it too much on the pod because things have just kind of moved past. And then I saw Dune one last time because why not?
Everyone knows Dylan loves Dune, right?
I and not to harp on it too much, but I have a theory that if y'all, I'll challenge listeners. Go back and confirm for me. I don't think there's an episode of this podcast where Dune has not been mentioned.
Davina has actually given me the feedback where she was like, I need you to go an episode without saying Dune or Oppenheimer. And I was like, does it really happen? And she's like, yes. And I'm tired of it. So if I'm tired of it, that means everyone else is definitely tired of it.
Maybe, but also she hears it on the pod and in real life too.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't think I talk about it too much in real life anymore. It's a little frustrating to be like typecast as just the Dune person in real life. And so I actually think in real life I talk about it way less than on a like movie pod personally. But of course, I guess I'm going to think that I don't talk about something all too often. So yeah.
Vaughn, did you watch any movies on your break?
Yeah, I got a chance to see Fall Guy, which was really, really fun. I think it also will hit if you are in the industry. Like, it's enjoyable for everyone. There's some extra nuggets and like some extra massaging that happens for a lot of those moments if you are in the biz, as they say. And I got a chance to check out Furiosa as well. I saw that last week, and it was fun. I found myself not knowing who to root for because I'm not super involved in the Mad Max world. Like, I've only ever seen actually this film and then Fury Road. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I'm also not a car guy, but I could appreciate like some of the weird, fun car things that were happening because it's just like, I mean, I was a kid that played with Legos, and that's kind of what a lot of this felt like. Just taking 6 different Lego sets, and now this is our new vehicle, and like this body is performing in this way. So it was like, I think, again, it's like enjoyable for me as a non-car person, but I'm sure a car person could look at this film and be like, oh man, it was really cool when they did this with the thing.
Damn. Well, now I gotta go watch it. Yeah, I took a trip down to El Salvador. I feel like this was the first, maybe my first adult vacation with like no itinerary, no plans, drinking on the beach, hanging in hammocks, drinking by the
Yes.
pool, just straight, just no worries, no fear, no nothing. El Salvador, if you get a chance to go, it's a stark 180 from what it used to be. Very safe, surprisingly very developed. Like roads, pretty good. I feel like some of the roads are better than here in SF, just because American infrastructure is the best. But yeah, beaches, the most wonderful beaches. I've only ever experienced like a warm Pacific Coast beach like once, and that was like a crazy thing because it was like super hot one day. But when I tell you that the water, that I've never felt the Pacific Ocean be that warm, I'm serious. It was so incredibly nice to be in and around it. But it's very humid. Obviously, it's very tropical. It's very. I mean, it's right next to the water. There's a bunch of lakes everywhere. Waking up at 7:30, 8 a.m., and then you're just immediately covered in sweat. But if you can look past that, it's pretty good time. Pretty good time. And before we left, I got to see the Planet of the Apes movie, the new one. Definitely made
Kingdom
me a
of the
friend.
Planet of the
Kingdom
Apes.
of the Planet, yes, yes, and I agree. It is definitely a kingdom now, although in the stages of kingdoms, it still feels like a bunch of in the Game of Thrones, it's still the seven kingdoms. It's not necessarily the one who conquers. But it's interesting to see where this lore is going, and we talked about it a while ago. But if they're planning on making 9 of these movies, I'm seated for all 9 of these movies. This one finally made me understand the broader, or finally made me excited for the broader story that they're going to tell. Caesar was great. Shout out to my boy Andy Serkis.
Mm-hmm.
but this lore, like right after the initial, like, okay, now we're done with like the setup, now let's explore where we can go with this. I'm all for sure. And I
Okay.
got to see Uncut Gems, the IMAX remake, or the IMAX re-release at the Metreon. I can't imagine anything bigger than the Metreon. That's the biggest IMAX theater I've ever seen. And if Dylan, you're saying the BFI is bigger than that, I can't imagine what that's like.
I'm muted because there was like my neighbor is making the loudest noise of all time. I did not want to have it come across on the pod. It's not like bigger in both ways. It's either wider or taller, one of the two, and I don't remember which one.
Mm.
But yeah, it's definitely bigger than Universal, and the Universal IMAX is like the biggest IMAX that I personally have seen. I haven't been able to go to Metreon, and I've been to the Lincoln Square Theater, but I haven't been to the IMAX. Just whenever I go to New York, there's just nothing that I really care about to see in IMAX. And so, yeah, it was massive. It was one of the few times I walked in and I'm like, oh my god, from like the theater size kind of thing. I'm hoping that if I ever get to see a movie at Metreon or Lincoln Square, that kind of gives the same feeling.
Yeah, before walking into Metreon, I did see I have seen a couple movies at AMC, but yeah, even then, just walking in and past the seatings and being like, holy shit, this is something else.
This is a lot.
Yeah, this was a lot, honestly. I sat way too close when we saw Uncut Gems because I thought that this was like a normal seating arrangement. So I thought sitting near the middle of just like how the display shows it would have been fine, but it was way too close for sure.
That's wild. I think the California Science Museum has. I heard literally this week a friend of mine went to visit and said that that screen was incredible to see. They've got a deep space film that they're showing right now, so
Yeah,
that's something I want to check out as well. Because I'm like, oh yeah, this was before we were watching films in IMAX. Like this is kind of how IMAX was marketed. It was like a immerse yourself in this world, and not like from a story building or like storytelling standpoint, but like be underwater with the fish, be in deep space, be in the air. So yeah.
yeah. I actually remember going there on a field trip to the California Science Center, and then watching one of those like deep sea movies at their IMAX theater. And that's why when I was surprised that people were actually seeing things in IMAX, I was like, wait, you guys are going to the Science Center to watch this? Not realizing, as like a 12 or 13-year-old, like, oh no, there are other places that show this exact same thing. I just remember it being like, yeah, it was like a pretty big point that this was an IMAX screen that you're going to watch like a 20-minute documentary about the oceans. But if I remember correctly, that screen is also pretty big. But I just thought that was IMAX in general. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if it well at the time I don't know if it was like a format or just like a marketing thing. But when you're also like I don't know 3 feet tall, it feels pretty big.
In DC, that the Air and Space Museum also has an IMAX theater that is massive, like absolutely massive. I think I saw Captain Marvel there, and it was like
Oof.
unbelievable how big it was. The first Captain Marvel is decent. That's when Marvel was just in their bag.
Oh,
Wait a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah.
Hold on. Hold on. What are you? Sorry, you broke up there a second. It almost sounded like you said. It almost sounded like there was going to be some slander about Captain Marvel 2, the Marvels.
No, I said the first
Uh
Captain
huh.
Marvel
Uh huh.
is actually pretty good.
Okay, and it's the
Um,
actually there that I want to break that part down.
and welcome to the Marvel portion of the podcast.
yeah. It is the only Marvel movie that has a beat of Purple Haze in there. That's the beer they're drinking. It's very Louisiana. I saw it with one of my best friends who's like, he likes to say he's from Louisiana. He's not because he spent his formative years in Connecticut and he likes to pretend that that didn't happen. But yeah,
We're gonna circle back to this probably in a month and a half, but I'll leave it there for now.
So we missed a lot when we were gone. So I'm just gonna speed run through some headlines, and then we can take a little deeper dive into them. I guess going in chronological order from what we missed, Disney and Warner Brothers will team up to start a new streaming bundle. Who doesn't love mergers and acquisitions, right, folks? Um, Brad Pitt's F1 movie allegedly has a $300 million budget. Um, I think it's we'll talk about it later. We've got Mila
Okay.
Kunis joining the cast of Wake Up Dead Man, and this is pretty old because I think some more announcements have been made since we tagged this article in our little group chat that we have.
Yeah.
Um, then we got Mickey 17 is being delayed until January 2025 because Warner Brothers is being Warner Brothers. We have a first look at the official Deadpool and Wolverine popcorn bucket, which
Okay. We're
hilarious.
waiting, or we're okay.
Careless Whisper is actually
We'll circle
playing
back.
now in the background as we start talking about the popcorn bucket.
Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons will officially star in Yorgo Lanthimos' next movie, Begonia. It's crazy that this guy's making like 3 movies in 3 years. If he's just gonna keep cranking them out like this, we'll see. And then Austin Butler is reportedly eyed to star in the upcoming Pirates reboot. He's going to be the new Jack Sparrow for life, same way as Johnny Depp has kind of locked into Jack Sparrow. Austin Butler is being sacrificed into the next pirate role.
And I feel like because he does the accent thing, I feel like that's his big thing so much that it'll be fine. It's hard to imagine it not being like if you have another pirate and it's called the Pirates of the Caribbean, sure. But to like say that this is Captain Jack Sparrow and have it be somebody different.
Have they said that?
I don't
That's been
think.
my understanding.
I don't
So
think
he's just
they're
taking
gonna
over the
reboot it.
franchise. He's
Yeah.
not, but
Yeah.
he's not playing Jack Sparrow. Is that right?
Yeah. From my
Although,
understanding.
what if they do the classic Disney thing where it's like a young Jack Sparrow, and it's like, why did Jack Sparrow become Jack Sparrow? Meet him when he
Yeah.
was just called Jack, and he doesn't have the sparrow tattoo, and he's actually like
Yeah.
French or something.
Meet him when he was still John Bird. Then yeah, okay. If he's not Jack Sparrow specifically, I'm down. If he is, I'm like, well, why? Why not? Why not just open it up?
I feel like from what I remember the last time we had talked about this, when there was talk that they were doing the reboot, I thought that they had said that like it was not going to be like Johnny Depp is Jack Sparrow, because I feel like personally it opens the door to then like find a way to like bring Johnny Depp back in. I don't know really if they're going to after the lawsuit and everything, just because it's just no one came out looking good in that, and so it's
Yeah.
just like it's one of those things of just I don't think he'll be back in. But I'm for it with Butler. I love Butler, and secure the bag. I think he'd be weird as hell in a good way, and I think it'd be really cool.
I'm thinking maybe they could do. I'm also on board of not making him a young Jack Sparrow, but if they do kind of do like a X-Men reboot where they don't explicitly say that this is like Patrick Stewart, but it's James McAvoy, but they're the same people or the same person, but this is just in the past. If they do, because I liked, honestly, the original X-Men trilogy is pretty dated, but it's funny. But I think the newer X-Men movies are better, except for Apocalypse. The I even like Dark Phoenix. I don't know.
Whoa.
Yeah, I
Okay.
like Dark Phoenix.
First Class is so good. That's all I'm going to say. First Class is unbelievable.
And Days of Future Past.
And Days of Future Past.
And Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past I'm not as huge of a fan of, but I think that First Class is unbelievable.
Minus the moment they were blatantly racist and killed the black guy whose mutant power specifically to adapt and not die.
I don't remember that because I haven't watched the movie in a long time. But yes, I agree with whatever that was. Yeah.
You agree with them or you agree with Vaughn?
Whoa.
I agree with Vaughn.
It's like the silence is deafening. Sweet.
Yeah. I guess moving on. Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons, Yorgos Lanthimos, another actor director movie coming from Yorgos Lanthimos. It's crazy because we haven't seen Kinds of Kindness. So what sort of synergy is going on set for them to kind of really enjoy working with each other.
It all started. All roads lead back to The Favorite, I think. Right?
Yep.
Oh wow.
It was 2018, I think.
Yeah, 2018. Yeah, pre-pandemic.
And I mean, I get it when you work with somebody that you really enjoy and you gel with, and I think we really got a chance to see some of that during this most recent awards like season run, where like Emma at every turn was like singing Yorgos's praises. So if they like making art together, the other thing to keep in mind is like we had that strike, and I'm sure that like threw timing off. So I could imagine a world where this stuff would have been more spread out, but now that like they had, the better part of a year to not be working on newer things, that they took that time to further flesh out other stuff that they had kind of in the bank.
Yeah, because the Poor Things and Kinds of Kindness have been like filmed for a while. I think Kinds of Kindness was filmed before Poor Things even released. So it's just been a
Hmm.
thing of like these movies have just kind of just been sitting on the back burner. I don't know if he's just been like touching it up or whatever. I know that like Poor Things had a decent amount of CGI, so you could tell me that maybe that was like they were kind of like waiting for that, and while that was going on, he could kind of do some more stuff. But I don't know if the filming for this movie, I think it's already started from what I remember. I don't think it's finished. But yeah, I think it's really cool when we have these kind of actor director kind of partnerships, and we have a ton of them going on right now. So it's just really cool to kind of see yet another partnership forming that has clearly already given some great movies and is obviously going to continue to give us even more.
The other thing I think about is Jamie Foxx and Stealth, that whole debacle. If y'all remember from 2003, where great back in my day we had
I was
no.
in the third grade, so no, I don't remember that.
I
Thank
think
you
I was
so
5.
much for that. And I was in the ninth grade. It's not like y'all are making it sound like I was a full grown adult. Like I was paying bills. No, I was in the ninth grade. But I do remember the weirdness of Jamie Foxx had just finished playing Ray and Ray Charles. Sorry, playing Ray Charles in the movie Ray. Won his Oscar. Like everybody's loving Jamie Foxx. And then the next film that comes out is Stealth, which was a not so great movie, especially by comparison. It was about him and Jessica Biel, I want to say, being stealth fighter, like in fighter jets or whatever. But the thing was, studios like had that film done, and it was just in somebody's desk. And it wasn't until now we have Jamie Foxx on this like fresh off this Oscar run. Okay, like come see Oscar winner Jamie Foxx in Stealth, and that helped draw a larger crowd who otherwise would not have seen it and would not have wanted to see it because it wasn't as good of a film. Um, and so I'm wondering like how much of that is also at play here. I think the landscape has shifted some since then, but I still do think or wonder now that we've seen Poor Things do well. We've seen like Yorgos has had this great streak of great films, given that timing and how much he's already been able to accomplish. Now he's like, okay, let's fire him off because we've got the heat.
Yeah, I mean, I think it
So
makes sense. You go. I bet.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, the budget for Kinds of Kindness is like 15 million, so it makes sense if you're really trying to like potentially like 3x, 4x, 5x that cost. Now that like because Poor Things got a ton of buzz, and it's like, oh hey, this is the next one. And for me, I've loved the trailers for them. I haven't seen them like all over the place, but the movie looks super interesting. I just don't know how many people are necessarily even going to know it's out. Like even as like someone that's super plugged into movies, I know about it, but I'm not even seeing it all that often. So how is like the larger audience going to?
I was just gonna say, thank you, Vaughn, for making that a bit more accessible. Because I have a similar thought. Like I was gonna ask who his like production company is or who his studio is, because how do you just have a movie and like not release it unless you're expecting something? And the only time that I can think of was when Fast Nine was delayed during COVID, even though the movie was done. It was done, and they were doing press, and then COVID hit, and then they just stopped. They just stopped, and they waited till COVID to be over until they released it because they were expecting, that money to come over.
Yeah, you
But
need that box office.
right, right. But that was also Universal, and it was Fast Nine, one of the weaker of the Fast, and everyone knows how I like Fast movies, just like Dylan likes Dune. So thank you for making that a bit more accessible for the audience who was alive in 2003.
Goddamn. That happens though. Like when you like the whole point of like festivals, like movie festivals are for people to like get their shit bought and then distributed. So
Yeah.
it's like I would it's relatively normal for a movie to just sometimes kind of like sit there. It's different when it's like major big budget movies. Ironically enough, that's what we're seeing happen with like two movies I'm really excited about, like Megalopolis, which is Francis Ford Coppola's movie. He put $150 million of his own money into this, and it's the same thing with Horizon, which is like the 4 point or like 4 part movie series. I just forgot his name, but that guy from what's his name?
Kevin Costner?
Kevin Costner. Yeah, Kevin Costner putting millions upon millions of his own dollars into this, and like some of those movies that he's like filming are just going to sit there until a studio decides that they want to buy it.
Hmm. Do you would a well? I was gonna think would a direct to consumer model, like a direct to theater model, work in if you're like mega rich? Like
I,
if you've already spent like millions of dollars, could you just
I,
like go up to AMC and be like, "Hey, I'm Kevin Costner. Here's a couple $1 million. Just put my movie out." You know.
I feel like yes. I guess maybe the only other thing is like marketing. Like I don't
Hmm.
think it's like I don't think that I mean, I'm sure it's probably somewhat expensive to like distribute a movie, but also I feel like it's like here's the file. Unless it's like, like if unless it's like literally on, film.
Yeah.
The other thing then is my guess is the marketing, because marketing can, I mean, usually people say it's like,
Hmm.
okay, whatever the cost of the movie is to make, marketing is of like equal cost, sometimes if not more.
Yeah. I
All right.
think too, the welcome to the after school econ club. The thing you have to keep in mind is like, yes, in a on a very simple term, yeah, you could walk up to AMC and say like, hey, can you do this? Or more realistically, like like somebody like us will do a smaller theater or something, and they'd say, sure, we'll put it on for X amount of days and this time frame, and here's like how we're going to work out logistics for budget or whatever. But then the other thing to keep in mind is if somebody with the sort of acclaim as Kevin Costner tries to go behind a studio's back or not involve studios at all, then what's to stop the studios from using their power to just buy up all of the theaters that he
Call
would
that
have
the Disney
had?
model.
I thought that was illegal.
No, that's what Disney does.
Disney owns movie theaters.
No, but if you ever noticed how whenever a Marvel movie comes out, that there's like 47 showings at every movie theater, it's
I would
not
just
by
figured.
accident.
I'd figured Disney just paid for that because church and state. If you have, I feel like I remember in my film history that they did this back in the day. It sounds vaguely familiar, where production companies had their own theaters and then showed their own movies, and I think the government was like no, and then they said that you can't do that. So again, Disney, I would assume, has, you know, the Marvels showing 24/7 because they just paid money to go show the Marvels 24/7.
Well, yeah,
Right,
it's
but
like
the other
yeah,
side to
Vaughn.
that, sorry, the other side to that though is maybe I'm gonna order, like, let's say there's a theater that has 20 screens, and I would normally order the Marvels to be shown on 4 of those screens, like throughout the day. I also know you have a movie coming out, and I don't want to compete with you for theater time or space. So I'll actually buy up, especially if I have the cash flow to do it. I'll buy up maybe 4 more theaters. So now you're fighting for more space, um, and I have more than I need, but I also have taken that away from you.
Yeah, it's like if I know my movie's going to make $1 billion, I'll spend the extra to make sure that every theater is like showing just a ridiculous amount of my movie, even if some of those are going to go empty, because that means your movie's not going to get shown. Which is like to an extent a little bit what was going to happen with Barbie and Oppenheimer, because Nolan leaves Warner Brothers. He leaves Warner Brothers. He's really frustrated with how they handled Tenet, and then he goes to Universal, and then Warner Brothers wants to fuck him and puts Barbie out on the same day as Oppenheimer. Ironically, it creates like a marketing just something that will probably never happen again, or at least to that level where it's actually instead everyone now wants to see both movies, and both movies end up making $1 billion. But like that's a thing that normally that will happen, and it doesn't really go unchecked because we live in a very under-regulated. I'm not going to get into politics, but yeah.
It's like the man in the black suit is coming for you right now,
Yeah,
Dylan.
yeah. You know probably
Um,
where I live, Zaslav. So come for me. We're about to talk
come,
about more about you in the next segment.
yeah, come on the podcast, David Zaslav.
I'm on the pod.
Please.
Hey, but speaking of Zaslav and, you know, studios being studios. Hey y'all, editor's note here. It turns out the Mickey 17 story was a lie. Right after recording, we found out that his contract actually states that he gets full control of the editing process, and so it's looking to still release in November. So when we talk about Mickey 17, just keep that in mind. Mickey 17 is being delayed. Bong Joon-ho says that he is not getting the final cut from Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers wants to make the film more accessible, quote unquote. Um, you know, what does that mean? Are they trying to like make it dumb, or are they trying to just make it easier to follow? But I wouldn't trust Warner Brothers. I wouldn't trust Zaslav to know what my best interests are. I think, given who Bong Joon-ho is as a movie maker, as an auteur, I would rather trust his opinion on this.
Yeah.
But what do y'all think?
For me, it comes down to this phrase. Gosh, I heard it so long ago, but the idea that there's universality in specificity. That is to say, if you tell, instead of me trying to, if I'm going to tell my story, instead of me trying to make sure that as many people as possible see their story and my story, by me making it accessible to everyone, like in that way, I actually reach no one. But if I do specifically tell the story of a black boy who grew up in the city, single parent, like all the things that actually are specific to my life, like there's gonna be people in the Midwest or wherever who don't have that story, who don't have share the same profile I do, but there's so much heart in it, and you get to empathize in a deeper way versus only feeling slightly connected or whatever. So that's what I think is happening here. I think Bong Joon-ho has a very specific story he's trying to tell, and when they talk about trying to make it more accessible, that's where you get the decisions to include the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids and all those things that, like, hey, this is what we want to push, that like the world wants, this is what people identify with. But that's not true. Like, I have no there's very little similar to my life compared to anything that happens in Parasite, but I still loved Parasite. It still did really well. And that does happen regularly, but what we wind up seeing is, again, the studios wanting to make sure that they make money, turn a profit, want to help shape or misshape the story so that more people feel like they have an in, and that's not necessarily what you need. And this is the this is the dilemma, I'd say, with the industry in general, is that yes, we there's money to be made because capitalism, and yes, we like invested into this story, so we want to make sure we get a return on the investment 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 times over if possible. But at the same time, this is art, and art does need to be specific, and art does need to be um it does need to say something. And I don't care what it says, but like say something. And in that saying, if you're not if you're so worried about everybody hearing what you say, then you're not actually saying anything to anyone. So it's yeah, it's the dilemma, and I get it from both sides, but I would rather tell the specific story and have fewer people identify with it but still hear it, versus trying to tell a story that everybody can kind of lean in on.
For context, because I it's been a while since we've heard about Mickey 17 and what Bong Joon Ho was doing here, but I just have the storyline pulled up on IMDb. It's adapted from the novel Mickey 7 by Edward Ashton. It stars Robert Pattinson as an expendable, a disposable crew member on a space mission selected for a dangerous task because he can be renewed when his body dies, with his memories largely intact. With one regeneration, though, things go very wrong. So, does that sound like an accessible story just right off the bat? Probably not. um, but I wonder what sort of like, you know, human twist he'll like add to it, right? Because I mean, Parasite was really based on that like human story. Um, I think the pig movie was also I forget what that pig movie was called.
Okja.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
also based on
right.
like a human thing. So um, yeah, Dylan.
Um, so there's a Noel Gallagher quote. I agree with everything Von's saying. There's a Noel Gallagher quote that's been like making the rounds. It's like this video of him talking about. He's the lead songwriter of Oasis. For those that don't know, and his whole thing is basically fuck the customer. He's like the customer does not know what the customer wants. Customer didn't want Jimi Hendrix. The customer got Jimi Hendrix, and they loved Jimi Hendrix. Customer didn't want the Beatles. They got the Beatles. They loved the Beatles. Like explaining all of that. And he's like, the customer is dumb, except for my customers. Y'all are really smart. Like, and that's like was like a funny way to just like end it. But like when you make something that is just when to Von's point, when you make something to make it have mass appeal, it is no longer appealing. Like that does not then make it interesting in any way. And furthermore, I just kind of was like pulling this up. So like the Snowpiercer, like the movies that Bong Joon has done, Snowpiercer doubled its money. Had a $40 million budget, made $80 million.
Oh, he did
Parasite,
Snowpiercer.
yeah.
Oh shit!
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Parasite, $15 million budget. The last movie he has done, $15 million budget, $260 million. Okja was a Netflix movie, so like the box office wasn't that great, but like it's a Netflix movie. They don't care about the box office. That's not what they want. It still did pretty well, only just because I remember that being a movie before. This was before Parasite, before I really know who Bong Joon Ho was, and I still remember like hearing about this movie. The
Yeah.
movie he did before Snowpiercer was another movie called Mother, $5 million budget, $17 million box office. He has a history of delivering on his investment. Now Mickey 17, it's a $150 million budget. That's a massive jump. So I get in that sense Warner being a little bit worried, but like look what you've done when you've let other filmmakers go unchecked, when you've let Nolan do what he wants, when you let Denis Villeneuve do what he wants, when you let Greta Gerwig do what she wants. All of these premier like directors, when they have the vision, have gone through and delivered for you. They tried to change Barbie until Margot Robbie was like adamant about not letting any of that change, and it turned into a massive movie. This movie has Mark Ruffalo, Stephen Yeun, Toni Collette, and stars Robert Pattinson as the main lead. Like, it has a ton of super recognizable faces. Hey, this is the next weird ass movie from the guy that made Parasite. You know, this movie that made like a ton of money and won all of these Oscars. That's how you market it. Yeah, it's going to
Yeah.
be weird. Weird movies are okay. I'm tired. We're adults. Not like, it's so frustrating when you just want to make everything super fucking cookie cutter. It's so, we're adults. We are smart. We have critical thinking skills. Stop feeding us cookie cutter bullshit, because all that is then teaching the audience to not expect anything more out of a movie.
Yeah.
I yield my time.
I agree.
I was going to say, well, I mean, I agree. I agree about the audience, stop being as dumb. But can I offer a counter?
Sure.
David Zaslav's a racist. Hear me out. Christopher Nolan is a white man. Denis Villeneuve is a white man. Uh, I
Greta
Margot
Gerwig.
Robbie is a white woman. Greta, thank you. Greta Gerwig is a white woman. Bong Joon-ho is a Korean filmmaker. And to your point, they are investing $100 million into this potentially, sketchy movie. I would not be surprised if there's a sort of like, well, you're not Christopher Nolan. It's like, okay, but this guy has a track record, to your point, Dylan, of hitting, home runs back to back to back. He is an auteur. I feel like we are honestly living in that another like auteur era right now, where directors can, for the most part, are allowed to go carte blanche and to just kind of tell their stories.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting when the other gets the opportunity. Like a minority isn't getting the green light from a studio to do what they want. Because what was the budget for Oppenheimer, Dylan? Do you know just off top?
It was actually pretty low. I think it was only like 100 million, which is crazy considering the
Damn.
cast.
I guess we'll
100
never
million.
know.
If it cut out 100, yeah. But yeah.
100 million, right? But it was just like, okay, here you go. It wasn't like, oh, well, we got to do it this way. Oh, well, we got to do it that way. No, he developed a special film to shoot IMAX in black and white. This guy shot it entirely on film, 7 miles long, the actual roll of film. And he just kind of was allowed to do what he wants. But when you have another director who has an amazing track record, who wants to tell this story in his way, who also has a budget of $100 million, it's just like, nah, we're just not gonna do it. Or like, ooh, can we change this one thing? This film is it's very oriental for some of our audiences. Can we change it? And it's just like, no, dude. This is like the reason why his story works is because he has that different life experience. That's the reason why he is who he is.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, very famously, and I guess this is like the safe for work version that his translator decided to give him. But at the Oscars, he was like, if you step over the 1 inch wall of subtitles, you will like learn a whole new world of cinema. And apparently, what he said was much more insulting, and the translator just made it sound nicer. But I absolutely agree. And it's like, yes, I understand there's a difference because the level of investment is so much higher. But like, that's what it was with Nolan, when Nolan, like, all of a sudden when these movies were like, Batman made a ton of money, and they're like, okay, well, it's Batman. And then he does Inception, but they let him spend the money on Inception. And then when Inception made the crazy amount of money back, it was like, oh no, okay, this guy has the juice. We're going to keep like, pumping him with money. If you never give Bong Joon-ho that, like, that potential, then it's what it's, because then what happens is if they're truly and it depends on how truly involved they are. It depends on how true this is. Like, if they're going to just start like making a tons of changes to the cuts, then it's a shitty movie. It's like, oh, well, see, look, we made this is why we tried to do this. And it's like, they're never going to admit that they're wrong. And the only person that then suffers from this is Bong Joon-ho.
I'm trying to look up who produced Parasite, or who like distributed it, I guess. Do y'all know off top?
I'm pulling it up right now. Neon. That's why.
Oh.
Neon doesn't miss.
So I'm curious to see how Warner Brothers got a hold of the next Bong Joon-ho movie. Like, was
Neon's not going to
he?
spend 150 million. They don't got money like that.
No, no. I know, but like in like I guess the big three or the big four, right? Like Disney, Paramount, uh, like MGM, I guess, or in the world of like the big studios, right?
Yeah.
How does he show up to David Zaslav's desk and is like, "Hey, you want to fund my movie?" And in what world does he say yes and then get cold feet and is like, "Actually, no."
Well, my guess is pre-pandemic, Warner Brothers was the studio. If you want to make a movie, if you are a premiere director, you go to Warner Brothers. And then the pandemic happened, and tons of things changed, and different leadership changed, and the company has been sold and bought for. And like Zaslav had nothing to do with Warner Brothers 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like that was a totally different leadership structure, and so it's just a very different company now. Whereas before, like think of even just recent movies. This is the movie like all the Nolan movies were Warner Brothers. The Matrix was Warner Brothers. Harry Potter was Warner Brothers. Denis Villeneuve movies are all Warner Brothers. Like that's just off the top of my head, and there's definitely way more. But this was the premier studio for the last like 20 or 30 years. So that's why if Warner Brothers comes to you and is like, I want to make your movie, yes, please. Like that's what absolutely I want. And then the pandemic happened and the change of release models and like all of that. And it's like completely changed the industry. And who knows if we're ever going to get back. So yeah.
I think too, we have, and I'm just basing this on some of my knowledge, like of the industry, but also a lot of the film Entourage, or not the film, the series Entourage, which was HBO and then also then Warner Brothers. So, anywho, uh, I'm sure like there's the green light to do your film. And then when you get your dailies back and the studios are looking at the dailies and saying and seeing, because that's the thing, they're constantly checking in on their investment. You don't just like give the money and I'll see you, at opening night. Like they're constantly checking in to make sure that their investment's being protected. So as the dailies are coming in or as drafts are getting updated, that's where studio involvement says, oh, can we add this, or can we add this product placement or this thing, or we actually really need this actor to be in this position or whatever. All of that involvement through the process, I'm sure that's where that tension is coming up from. So it's got to be the dailies, in my opinion, of like, you're shooting this scene like this is actually way too harsh or not enough of whatever. There's some element missing to what the studio wants to see for their marketing or for their distribution, and that's where he's putting his foot down.
I guess we'll have to wait and see what cut gets out, and then we'll go on Twitter and ask for the Bong Joon-ho cut,
Yeah.
release the director's cut. Hey, speaking of Warner Brothers keeping it rolling, fuck David Zaslav. Uh, Disney and Warner Brothers are teaming up to start a streaming bundle that includes Disney Plus, Hulu, and Max. Hey, you know what? We're back to cable, baby.
I was gonna say, in my day, we had a similar model. It was called cable.
Can't wait to pay for my Disney phone line and my Max internet to have a internet bundle with cable included.
To be fair, that kind of like if you have AT&T, then you get Max for free, and if you have each of the the primary carriers in the US have a bundle. What is it? Verizon, I think, has Disney Plus.
As a
Like,
Disney Plus bundle, yeah, and I think it's like the Disney Plus, like the premium one, where it's or not the premium one, but like it's the bundle, but it's like the base tier of the bundle because it's like Disney, Hulu, and ESPN.
mm-hmm.
But they all have ads, so it's not like the premium one, but it is the Disney family bundle. And I think T-Mobile gives you Netflix, but Netflix now isn't what Netflix was like 5 years ago.
Yeah. So yeah, we're back to business as usual. And then somebody's going to break off and say, no, this is too much. We need to make this more affordable. We're just going to do our stuff. Yeah.
Time is a flat circle.
Exclusively.
I wonder, A, I wonder what it's going to be called. And B, I wonder how protective Disney would be across their like properties. Like I think it was pretty big news when Disney allowed like Hulu stuff to show up or like R-rated stuff, and there was like, well, if you just launch Disney Plus and you sign in, you're not going to see it. You kind of have to go into this menu in a sub menu to then hit like allow stuff. And it was kind of surprising because the other day I opened up Disney Plus and like on that banner was like The Omen, and me and Hema were like, what the fuck? Like, why is Disney Plus showing this like crazy ass horror movie? And I remember a lot of the controversy too was when they dropped the HBO on HBO Max. Was like before, during the cable days, HBO was like, oh, this is an HBO show. You know, people know that this is quality. But now you're throwing in like Desperate Housewives and the Discovery Channel and the Food Network all in one platform, and you're dropping the HBO name, and so people won't have that like brand recognition. So I really wonder what they're going to call it. Disney Max, maybe? Disney Max Plus? D-Max. Ooh, D-Max. I like D-Max.
I hate that I like D-Max as well.
I think Disney Max is probably... They're not going to want to drop either name.
Max Disney.
Now I'm just thinking of Max from Goofy movie.
Oh.
Yeah, I hate this. I think it's so dumb. Not the names. The names, I mean, sure, but that's just a byproduct of like everyone went too intense with streaming anyways, and so this is just like then what's going to come from it, and it's just like really, really dumb. And you're seeing the same thing with like sports as well. Like a lot of these like companies are teaming up to then have like similar like sports bundled streaming, and it's just like we are going to get back to cable basically. Yeah, it's really dumb.
But they've done it in a way that, like, unless they start to enforce some of the same rulings, like with Hulu, like if you have a Hulu subscription, you have to be in a specific area. So, for example, me and my mom were thinking about like, because she cut the cord about a year or two ago, and I was like, no, it's like way better. Just like you don't even just what shows do you watch? We kind of broke that down, and I was like, okay, all the stuff you watch is like available here. But she kind of went with a Hulu bundle, and I was maybe going to jump on it, but I can't because I live across the country, and so Hulu like sees even if you have another user, like where are you logging in at?
So you can still use Hulu, you just can't use the live TV function. And you are allowed to switch back and forth up to 4 times per year. And I know this because I watched a lot of 49ers games here in SF. Even though my brother pays for Hulu in LA. But every time I load up the Hulu app, it just says like, hey, you're not home right now. Also, you're out of switches for the year. Do you want to just continue to the library? And I just hit yes. And then it just kicks me into the library. And to what I mentioned earlier, Disney just has Hulu now. So if you merge the two accounts, you could just watch your Hulu stuff on Disney Plus, and Disney Plus doesn't give a fuck.
Right.
Also, VPN.
Yes. But and this is kind of what I'm getting at, is that there are these like rules in place, and yeah, we are kind of getting back to cable, but at the same time, you know, I know people, not that this is something I'm doing myself, but I know people that like that, okay, I'm paying for the Disney and you're paying for the Showtime and you're paying for HBO, and like, and people do password swaps and go onto accounts and see a bunch of strangers also listed, but I'm going to go to my little section here and it has all my stuff and my viewing history and whatever. So it's like cable, but more affordable.
And whoever is on my Peacock and is watching shit on my account, please stop. I know you're probably not listening to this, but it's so frustrating. Make your own account. I don't care. I know you have access. You know that I know that you have access. Make your own fucking account, please. That's all I ask. I don't care. You somehow have that information. I have no idea how you've obtained this information. Stop watching baking shows and shit on my account because it makes it really harder to find the things that I'm trying to watch. Also,
As an
for
example.
sports, everyone uses Stream East. Even LeBron James. LeBron James got caught watching games on Stream East, and so it's just like the illegal streams are too powerful in this current moment.
Shout out to the Pirates.
Or
Shout out Austin Butler.
Right.
Oh, I forgot my point. Well, great. We're back to cable. Switching to Disney now that Deadpool's part of Disney. I know, Vaughn, you've been waiting to talk about the popcorn bucket,
Bro.
which is a direct counter to the Dune popcorn bucket, which was probably not intentionally a sex toy, but this is clearly a sex toy. At least if you've seen the release online, and just how what orifice you put your hand in to grab the popcorn.
I said it in the group chat, and I'll say it again. It's the butter. The butter's what sends it over the top, and it's too much. I can't. But I also appreciate the fact that we do have a world where like Deadpool is in such a specific space and like had occupied that space exclusively in the comics, and now that it does have a lot of like critical success, like this is like peak Deadpool of like, okay, there's a pop culture thing happening, I'm gonna capitalize on that and then take it to the next level. So silly. I also love that at least I noticed I saw the trailer like come up on my feed randomly, but when I went and saw this week's film, I happened to notice there was a Deadpool and Wolverine like pre-show thing. I don't know if y'all had that about like turning your phones off, and I was like, okay, this is perfect marketing because it's like we're breaking the fourth wall, which is the Deadpool thing. We have like the gritty, really gritty Wolverine that we've been wanting for so long, and both of those things are in service of like the theater in general and like promoting their movie, but also reminding you about phones in the movie you're watching. It's great. But yeah, this bucket, keep it. I might buy one though at the same time.
I won't buy one, but I love the ad. Very funny.
Yeah, I'm not gonna buy one either. I'm not a fan of popcorn buckets. Hot take. Like I get the idea. I get it's like bringing home a T-shirt from a show. But Dylan, you raised your hand. What was that about?
I have a hot take. I don't
Hotter
know
take?
if I dig popcorn in movie theaters.
Whoa!
What?
This isn't like it's bad. This isn't like it's bad. And I actually say this last night. I had a lot of popcorn, but as I was eating, like Davina and I were like eating, and I was like, I can't think of the last time I have A, ordered popcorn, or B, when ordered popcorn, enjoyed it. And I like popcorn. Like at home, I will eat popcorn and I will dig it. But like,
What?
and this isn't to say like I'm not attacking you. If you like popcorn, enjoy it, go for it. It's more of like I just came to the realization of like I don't know if I like eating popcorn in a movie theater. Give me Bunch of Crunch and just Bunch of Crunch all day long. I used to put the Bunch of Crunch in the popcorn, and now it's just a
No.
Bunch of Crunch.
Okay,
guy.
no. Popcorn is essential in the movie going experience.
I get it.
Honestly, it's how they make their money.
This guy says he supports movie theaters. I don't know about that.
I pay
I think he supports
$7 for a
corporations.
soda. So
I think he supports corporations.
But that $7 for the soda plus the like $10 for the popcorn that only cost them a dime to make, like
yeah,
it's
I get it.
That is the experience.
Yes, and I understand that. I'm not. Everyone else do it. You know, like I'm not here, but it's just.
Here, let me show you a hack. You get the popcorn, and then you get the little bucket of nacho cheese, and you dip the popcorn in the nacho cheese.
Oh, what? Wait a minute. You're nasty. Okay. I somehow have never heard. I mean, I've heard of like the nacho seasoning, or like like people do all the different flavors of popcorn. But
I've been doing that since I was a kid. Like me and one of my best friends. Well, his sister used to work at a movie theater. Uh, Shout out to the movie theater that's in Culver City. That used to be Pacific Theaters. Now I think it's dead. Anyway, yeah, she put us on that. She put us on that when we were teenagers. I was like, yeah, you buy a bucket of popcorn or you buy your own popcorn, and then you get the little thing of nacho cheese, and
Yeah,
you just dip the popcorn in the cheese. I put him on it too. It's great.
I
I'm just worried
I
about
may have to find a
spillage.
reason. That's true. Whenever I get up from the theater, I'm always like trying to do my best to like clean up after myself, and I'm just like, how did these kernels get here? Like, there's been times where like I'm going back to my car after the film, and I reach in my pocket for my keys, and I pull out a kernel of popcorn. I'm like, what is happening?
You gotta like take your shoes out and just like rattle them out, and just like kernels are just.
And so that plus nacho cheese would not be good.
It makes you be more intentional because you can only take like one or two at a time, as opposed to just stuffing your face with the popcorn. Because you
Yeah,
have
who
to
would do
dip it.
that?
You have to dip it in the. But popcorn and like an icy or popcorn and a Coke, dude. Come on now.
Classic.
Yeah.
There are times where last night I enjoyed it, but it was in that realization last night where I was like, oh wow, I don't do this all that often.
Trash.
Maybe your theater has shit popcorn, dude. Because I've had shit popcorn at movie theaters.
So this is actually, I've been recently going to closer AMC, and I actually really dug this popcorn. So maybe it's, I don't know, maybe the one at Universal has been
Yes, the one at Universal is mid. I can confirm.
Interesting.
Supremely. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that popcorn has missed more than
popcorn's
it's hit for
garbage.
me.
Okay,
Yeah.
what about Burbank? Because Burbank I'm starting to go to more.
Burbank is good.
Burbank is good. Yeah.
Okay.
You there are moments where you kind of have to catch it. So like if I'm at a matinee, I can't guarantee it. But if it's like, prime
It's like
time,
popping.
like
Yeah.
like 7-8 p.m. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're gonna get a good batch of popcorn. But yeah, Universal is usually kind of stale because they're pre setting it. Who even knows how long in advance? Like 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Crazy.
Mhm.
So it's not fresh. Yeah.
Oh
and-
yeah, they do
gotta
the
get the
like.
fresh.
I forgot. Yeah, because they have like the whole conveyor belt system. Dang. Alrighty. Well,
Mhm.
I'm wrong.
Mm.
Clip it.
And the Metreon has shit popcorn too.
That's so weird. Why? Like of all the places, why is it the best movie theaters have the shit popcorn?
Because they know they're getting so many people, and they need to get through the folks faster.
Mm-hmm. Hey, sticking on the Disney train, the Brad Pitt F1 movie has a $300 million budget. As an F1 fan myself, counting down the minutes to the Canadian GP, I think this makes sense. F1 cars are really expensive. Given that yeah, F1 cars are expensive. Just driving the car, legal fees, driving at
Insurance.
the circuit, Brad Pitt, 100%. Like, so the budget cap for one season of F1 is $150 million. If this is at least a 2-year movie, that's development of like a car alone. Like that makes perfect sense to me.
They're not building a car to race.
I know,
They're renting a
but
car.
I'm
There's
giving
no
you
reason this movie
perspective.
should
I'm
cost this
giving you
much.
perspective.
To give you perspective, would be the 12th most expensive movie ever. There's no,
Okay.
they're not in space. They're not the movies that are like it's the Star Wars movies, it's Indiana Jones, it's Doctor Strange, it's Avengers. This is more expensive than all but one Fast and Furious movie. Like there is no reason for this movie to cost $300 million. This is some weird Apple shit going on. I don't know how much money Apple is paying Brad Pitt or the directors or other things like that for this movie to be made. There is no reason why this movie should cost $300 million. It shouldn't even cost close to $300 million. Rush, another F1 movie, I think the Rush budget was $40 million. So like there is no reason why this movie should cost this much. It is insane.
I thought this was a Disney movie, but you're right. It's an Apple TV movie. Anyway, I disagree, dude. F1, just like
Oh,
Apple,
interesting.
is like a premier brand, and if they're calling it the F1 movie, I'm sure just like licensing alone is probably a decent amount of money. And again, they have all 20 drivers like make cameos or like be characters in the film. Like they are actively quote unquote racing against these drivers. They are
Yeah, I'm
this movie takes place during like I think the 2022 season. Like this is meant to be like an alternate reality where this team is actually on the grid, and the fact that they have to get permission through everything to be on there, it makes sense to me. There's no way that you can do this without it. There's no way you could actually get like Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen like either saying lines or taking their radio messages and like making them part of the movie without paying somebody. There's just no
that
way.
that costs nowhere near as much as the CGI costs for anything else. Like that stuff is honestly drop in the bucket. Cameos, Max Verstappen, not a star. Like not a star. There are
but
like
I think
I
he does
disagree.
not. He
I think what we're looking at is there's got to be an angle here, and I think authenticity is the angle, and I think that's where the
Yes,
budget's coming in.
yes, because they what was it, Silverstone last year, they actually started the race, and you didn't see it in the broadcast because the broadcast, in collusion with the film crew, specifically hid them from like the actual international broadcast. But the start, whenever they get to Silverstone, they were actually on the grid, and when the lights go out and the actual cars race, the production cars, they like go into like an emergency exit like immediately, and they have cameras in these F2 cars, and they are actively racing in circuits. There was a picture the other day of one of the cars crashing because they were driving the car in a circuit. This
that
makes perfect sense to me.
that's standard movie shit. To be honest, like this movie almost costs as much as Avatar, the newest one.
Hmm.
It's insane.
These are,
There's
these are
this
real
is
cars though, right?
I understand, which makes it cheaper because you get to use the
No,
car and you're renting a car. They're not building a car. They're not developing a car. They're renting a car for a few
How do you
hours.
know that though?
That they're not building a car. I don't know
Yeah,
that for certain, but I will bet
and
I
that's
will
what
never
I'm,
go on this podcast again if they're building a fucking car for this movie. And if they are,
Dylan. I don't want to lose a co-host like this. Don't say that.
I
Please take it back.
this is budget fuckery. This is budget fuckery. This is absolutely Apple finding ways, just like with their other movies, just like Argyle, just like Killers of the Flower Moon. They have these crazy inflated budgets because they are paying these actors and these directors and so much more upfront. They're going to give them so much money upfront because they don't care about the box office. This is specifically like branding and marketing. There is no reason why this movie should cost this much. You could tell me this movie maybe would then cost 150 or 200 million dollars, maybe, but Apple is not like spending time in the fucking tunnel for 200 hours to make sure that this shit is super aerodynamic. They're renting someone else's car. There's absolutely no way they're going to waste the time to spend that. This is pure budget fuckery.
So here's the thing, just to real quick, because I know we numbers are happening, right? And so I can't not talk about more numbers. 300 mil, right? $300 million. That's a lot of money to make a movie. Apple last quarter, just the last quarter, made almost $91 billion in 3 months.
All that cut out for me, so can you repeat that?
Happily. $300 million is a crazy amount of money. Yes, that's super high. But Apple also in the last quarter alone made $91 billion. This is a small drop in the bucket for them.
I don't disagree with any of that. That furthers my point that it's budget fuckery and it's them spending obscene amounts of money. But like all of
But
us,
if you can, why not?
we have a pretty decent understanding of how Apple treats money, like, and the level of things they go to and the cost cutting measures that they go to. They're not spending the money to build this fucking car. They're spending the money to make Brad Pitt happy, to make Joseph Kosniski happy, to make Idris Elba, who I also believe is in this movie, healthy. That's where that money is going. I wouldn't be surprised if all of them aren't making upwards of $40 to $50 million. I would not be upset if they are shoving money in their mouth to make them incredibly happy, which is what's driving this budget up. The movie's not called F1. It is an untitled movie. Max Verstappen is a star in F1. He is a star in parts of Europe. He is not a big deal by any stretch of the imagination. He's not. The Formula One is not a crazy sport in terms of total popularity. It is not to the level.
Step in Mexico and tell me that everybody does not love Checo Perez.
In one country of 80 million people, Checo is a big deal. That's great. There's 6 billion people in this world. He doesn't touch tons of other stars and tons of other athletes. Like, it does not. Yes, he is a big deal in Mexico. I know that his shit is everywhere in Mexico. That's great. He's a really big deal in Mexico. He's a Mexican star. He makes tons of money in Mexico. He's not to the same level of what you would see with a Messi or a Taylor Swift or a Ronaldo, or insert any other like European sports star or like a basketball player, where there is much more global appeal in other markets. I just looked it up. Max Verstappen, he's got 12 million Instagram followers. I know that's not like the biggest of deals, but that puts into perspective like the level of like stardom. That's nothing. That is nothing by like today's standards of stars.
Lewis Hamilton, dude.
Lewis Hamilton is a bigger deal, absolutely, but like
he's in the movie. Does he not? Is he not going to get paid to be in the movie?
He's a producer, so he's actually probably getting a bunch of money shoved down his. But like, this is furthering my point. Like, that's not like they're going to give him a ton of money because he's a producer. They want to make him like it's building a relationship. It's budget fuckery. There's no reason this movie should cost $300 million. It's embarrassing, to be honest, in my opinion. It's crazy.
What's embarrassing about it? Because you're just talking about a bunch of people getting really well paid.
Think of how many movies that could get made if they had pulled back on that money a little bit. How many?
But it's Apple. 5, again, 91 billion in the last quarter. They can still make those. They can still tell those stories.
Will they? Because I don't think they will.
I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that they won't. It's not like every other studio where, they are like cutting costs and doing all that stuff, and we're only getting the one because we can't get. They're like so conscious.
That
there's
agree
so
with.
Much money.
That I
and there's a new thing happening with
money.
Apple.
Yeah.
There's like Apple had, like I opened up my Apple TV, a couple weeks ago. There were 5 or 6 new things I had never even heard of. All of it sounds incredible. It's not like they're only doing this one $300 million movie and nothing else.
I agree.
They're putting a lot out there.
I agree on that point. I concede the what else could you do with that money point, because Apple is going to throw that money around. I'm wrong. That being said, the budget's insane. That is an obscene amount of money. There is no reason this movie should cost anywhere near this much money. It's insane. It's better to be one of the most expensive movies of all time. That's dumb. Dumb.
As an actor who would someday look forward to being the ones who get the $40 million check, I support it.
Yeah, I'm all for taking money from major corporations. It just doesn't need to cost anywhere near this much amount of money.
But he's not going to buy popcorn to support the
mom and pop theater.
The mom and pop theater, yeah,
known as AMC, who did almost close. Let's not forget, that was a scary, real thing that was going to maybe happen.
I disagree, but let's move on.
Also, it is a modified Formula 2 car that they did not like.
Yeah, but again, I don't think whoever made the F2 car is like, oh yeah, here you go. No, there's a lot of liability in all of that, dude. And they got 2 of them.
And why does Rush cost $40 million?
Because I don't think Rush used real cars. I think if anything, they had a lot of picture cars. Not to say that this movie won't have picture cars, but the biggest thing, to Vaughn's point, was the authenticity of it. And they're saying these are modified F2 cars, and we put Brad Pitt and this other guy in this F2 car, and we toured them around the world. Yeah, also they're touring around the world. That's also really expensive to travel across the world to be on these racetracks.
So looking up, Rush did use, they used both vintage and replica cars. I'm just saying, like,
I have another example that I'll
Rush was
share
also at a
off
different
the
time.
pod.
Rush was also made when was that, and then account for inflation.
it was in 2013. It was
2013.
10 years ago. Even if it's literally double,
Mm.
it's $80 million.
That's $100 million, dude. That's a one
It
third
costs
there.
$1,000, £1,000 to race an F1 car for 44 laps. When I'm looking this up right now. So
That's I know what you're talking about. You're talking about like those experiences that you can do.
yeah, the most
Those-
expensive is $5,000 for 30 laps in an F1 car.
Yeah, but that's an old spec car. It's like a vintage car that they're like understand that they're just gonna let people drive. This was, I think, either this year, no, 22 or 21, like an actual F2 car that they used. Like again, this whoever they rented it from gave them the car that they actually used to compete. There's a bit more cars. Cars are one of those things where you can kind of also to yeah, fine, you can do budget fuckery with cars. You can say, oh, this car is worth $1 million, and then just really not be worth $1 million. I'll give you that, but nah, dude, it makes sense.
Again, I have another thought, but I will share that off pod as to why this just sounds normal to me and makes sense. But I also love how spirited we all are, and believing that you're right about a thing. It's fantastic for everyone.
Hey, let's talk about the movie of the week.
Yes, let's please.
So this week, we actually met up a week before just to kind of get our ducks in a row and agree on scheduling. We decided to go watch the new Bad Boys movie, Bad Boys Ride or Die, which right before recording, I saw that it overperformed, quote unquote, this weekend. Had a budget of 100 mil. It made 100 mil. So this goes to our point from, maybe we talked about it. Maybe this was during the conversation, but uh, the conversation offline. Will Smith can't make bad movies. I think he can't make. Okay, let me rephrase that, Mister Meehan. Will Smith makes great box office movies. They're not necessarily the greatest movies, but hey, that's why the parabola exists. Remember that parabola?
Okay.
I'm not. That's not about the quality. That's all. That's all.
Not.
After Earth is a thing. That's all I'm gonna say.
Hey,
Wait.
well, how much did After Earth make?
I'm not sure how much it made, but it definitely did not make anywhere near as much money as his other movies. That's the only point that I'm trying to make.
But it made a lot of money.
Looking at it right now, it looks like it made 100 million more than its budget, but that doesn't account for marketing. So, like, I'm guessing that movie broke about even. That's all. I loved Bad Boys 4. I love this movie. That's all we're like, just to get into it. I love Will Smith movies. That's all.
Fantastic.
I just don't. Yeah.
Let me run down some of credits, and then I would love to dive in. I will start by saying, and this was true for me in 2020. I hate the title of this movie because this one should have been Bad Boys for Life, because it's the fourth movie, and that's like their whole thing. And why not just trust that the thing's going to come back? I'll get more into that later. But Bad Boys Ride or Die, obviously it's got Will Smith, who I think, did Will Smith get top billing this go round? Because I just went and rewatched. Apparently, by the way, if you want to restart the journey before you watch it, you can watch the first Bad Boys movie on Apple TV. It's just on Apple TV right now,
Oh wow, that's cool.
on
Wait,
Apple TV Plus.
has he not gotten top billing before?
I went to go rewatch the first one. Martin Lawrence had top billing from the first movie, which
Oh
Okay,
it
maybe
makes
wow.
like
sense.
the first movie I get,
Yeah,
but
Right.
like by 2 or 3, I mean,
yeah, I'm sure it flipped at that
yeah.
point. But so yeah, Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, uh, comedy geniuses from our '90s, from the '90s. Also directed by Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah, who I think both of them are Moroccan. I couldn't quite confirm that, but other stuff that they did was the last Bad Boys movie. They also did the Batgirl movie we never saw. Speaking of
Uh,
big
Bummer.
studios and budgets and things, and they brought some of that Mediterranean vibe feel to some of the episodes of Miss Marvel. They directed some of that stuff,
Huh.
and then
Wow.
Bilal also did some episodes of Snowfall. But that's the landscape. Oh, and also as we're talking about casting, they recast the wife. Martin Lawrence's Marcus's wife was played by Tasha Smith in this film, which was a first because Teresa Randall, who plays the character's name is Teresa, and the original actress's name is also Teresa. But Teresa Randall was not present in the film.
Hmm.
And I did some very, very light research, so don't take any of this as law. But it looks like Teresa Randall maybe was like not in a healthy enough condition while they were filming
Oh man.
to do the film. So love to her. Like, and I didn't see anybody. None of it was mentioned. Like in some of the articles I read where the announcement came out about Tasha Smith playing the wife, nothing was mentioned. Like there was no statements from Teresa Randall or her team, but TMZ allegedly saw her somewhere, like walking with a cane or like walking using a
Oh,
walker to move
Oh
around.
wow.
So there was something there with the casting. But yeah, gentlemen, thoughts on the movie? Non
Uh,
spoilery thoughts.
I don't remember if this was that offline conversation or maybe a while ago. This probably was the offline conversation, but it has been a long time since I've seen the Bad Boys movies, and I think I mentioned that I saw them in Spanish because Telemundo would uh, always play Bad Boys 2. And I remember my dad had like a bootleg copy of the original Bad Boys, and so I would watch it with him. But that that was it, and that was a long time ago. And those movies, are different than the movies that we have now. So just had no recollection of what it was. But then, uh, sorry, full transparency, didn't see the third one just because I this mythology of Bad Boys is everything I just said. Oh, my dad used to watch them. They're really old movies. I'll get to them eventually. They're not like on my list, so I didn't watch the third one. But having the opportunity to watch this fourth one, man, was it fun!
Yeah,
It was so much fun. Um, I if this is the next action movie franchise, I'm on board just because this truthfully reminded me of what Fast and Furious used to be. You know, campy, fun action with somewhat of a air of plausible, like it's all somewhat real, somewhat not. It was just so much enjoyment. A classic summer movie, in my opinion. I have to go back and rewatch the others because if this is what the Bad Boys franchise is, again, I'm on board. It was so much fun. I loved it.
Yeah, I
for
watched a
sure.
recap for the third because I didn't see the third, and I'm glad that I did because I needed. There was like a lot of story that I would have been completely lost if I hadn't. Um, it's yeah, to everything that Hosea just said. It was hilarious. My theater was cracking up throughout like multiple points of the movie. It was super enjoyable. I loved that a lot of the effects were practical. A lot of the explosions were real explosions. I really dug that. I had a blast. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was, I don't know if it was as good as The Fall Guy. Some of it was probably better and some of it wasn't as good, but I absolutely enjoyed it. It was really cool to see Will Smith just be an absolute movie star again. And I'm sure that'll come up later when we talk about like what this kind of means for his career.
Yeah. I think there were so many good callbacks to the entire franchise as well. And it's funny that neither of y'all saw the third one. It also, when I was looking up like release dates, I was like, I remember seeing this in theaters, but what year, like when did it come out? And it was like, wait, 2020. The third movie, I think, was the only one to not come out during the summer
It's
because it
like a
came out
pre-COVID movie,
January.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
I remember it
January
being a pre-COVID
2020.
movie.
Um, and funny enough, so third and fourth movie same directors, so it's going to be a similar vibe to what you saw from this one. First two have the same director, being Michael Bay, did the first two Bad Boy movies.
And he was in this movie for
He
a
was
second, yeah.
he was a cameo, right?
Yeah,
I believe so, yeah.
that was him driving that car. I thought so.
The
Yeah,
Porsche. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was just a lot of fun. My theater was, because I went to like a crazy early matinee. My theater was kind of small, and I hate that. I wanted to feel the vibe and the energy of everybody in the crowd, but there were two aunties that were like two rows behind me, and I was like, this movie is doing exactly what it needs to, because the aunties are catching the jokes that they need to catch that are just for them. And yeah, this like has great fun for everybody. If you like the action, if you like the comedy, if you like some of the like black specific parts of like the story, all of it is in place. And thinking about the stars we have in this movie, Will Smith obviously has the much wider appeal, but Martin Lawrence is always gonna like have a special place, I think, in Black people's hearts. My heart especially. Like I remember, R.I.P. to my grandmother, but like when I was a little boy, we would watch episodes of Martin together,
Wow.
and she'd always be like, "Oh, Martin's so crazy! Oh my God, Martin, Martin, Martin!" And it also was special because Martin's from the DC area. He's from the DMV, so shout out to him. Um, but yeah, like he hasn't obviously done a whole lot since his TV show. Like, and he had like a good movie run in the '90s and 2000s, like early 2000s. But like those aunties that were in the rows behind me laughing, I was like, right, because like he was their pull, or like
Hmm.
yeah, like they showed up, sure, for Will Smith, but also like there's the familiarity with Martin Lawrence. And yeah, and I just loved that this movie felt like it did a lot of the things that Coming to America 2 wanted to do. And I will say this, because if y'all go back and rewatch watch the third one, this is a little different and I think better in a way in terms of like how they handle callbacks to the
Hmm.
previous like films. It was so tastefully done and effectively done. Um, the jokes were all really fun and funny and not too like campy for me or weird for me. And like not in an alienating way. I felt like, yeah, if you like you can get enough of the gist of the jokes that they're using. um but yeah, there's a critical thing that happens in the third movie that I'll wait till the spoiler part to tie it all together, because I do want y'all to see it.
Yeah, to kind of talk more about Martin Lawrence. Martin Lawrence's character is to be his dad to a T, to the point where it was a little uncomfortable while watching. It was like she turned to me like midway through the movie, and she was like, "This is my dad, and it's making me very uncomfortable." Like things he would say, like the way it would be phrased, like pronunciate, like down to like the pronunciation of certain things. It was like just wild.
Tracks.
Yeah.
I love it. And I love the callbacks, specifically Reggie. Like, shout out to Reggie, making his way back in the movie. I don't think he may have like shown up briefly in the third movie, but I don't think we've seen Reggie since he took the daughter out on a date in Bad Boys 2, 21 years ago. That was 2003 that came out. Um, and to see, yeah, I'll wait for the spoilers. But shout out,
And
I
I think
like.
he's actually a soldier in real life.
No, he's an actual Marine.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Shout outs to
shout out
him.
to him. But yeah, and I'm trying to think about any other non-spoilery things I can say. Lots of great fun. Um, Felt
Yeah,
good about the action. Yeah.
I would say go watch it, but it looks like y'all are already watching it. $100 million in the weekend. It's already made its budget back. People are out there watching, a classic action movie, and I think, yeah, the draw of Will Smith and Martin Lawrence worked back then, and it's working now. If anything, given Will Smith's like negative PR since like the incident at the Oscars, maybe would have like tilted the scales one way or another. But I feel like most people like they thought it was funny, but then never really were plugged in to like what actually happened with Will Smith and like what the repercussions of that incident were. So people are going out there and watching movies, and that's great.
Yeah, I will say, and I know Dylan, you have some thoughts about like Will Smith and what this film's like doing for him in his career. Um, it has been challenging as a fan of Will Smith to see the fallout from the slap. Like, uh, should it have happened? My opinion is not on camera, no. But ultimately, the outrage that people had about that slap compared to the other much more severe atrocities of like trafficking and like degradation and misogyny, like all the other very terrible things that other people, men in Hollywood, do, and like this is the thing we're gonna like be upset about. Like I it doesn't make sense until you like consider who we're comparing who to, and like there's a thing that Will Smith and I have in common that makes it a lot of sense on why he would be scrutinized more
Mm-hmm.
harshly. But we're talking
And
like literal
also,
abusers in Hollywood who people just hand wave.
and it takes it things also being caught on camera, and that's not in the sense
Mm-hmm.
that makes it okay. And this is not me by like, it's one of those things of because he did it at the Oscars and because it was so public and everyone saw it in that moment. And also, yes, all of that also matters as well, but it takes certain things like Harvey Weinstein, what he said being caught recorded, or like, to actually further your point, like the Diddy video that comes out or something like that.
Mm.
Like, it takes things being a lot of times caught on video for that to have the reaction. It doesn't justify the reaction to it. The reaction to it is like really weird. It was like it's one of those things of like, it literally was a 1 second thing and it was crazy, but like it's one of those things of it was one moment and it's really not in the grand scheme of things like that big of a deal at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Jose, you were gonna say?
I don't was gonna say anything. I was gonna say, yeah, no, nothing.
Oh, okay.
I was just agreeing with Dylan that it was funny. It was like, oh shit, this happened, and then there was memes about it, and then it kind of died down. But I guess they used him as a scapegoat for relieving a lot of that tension. That's what I was thinking. While y'all were talking about your perspectives on the slap, because it does seem at that time again that there was a lot of tension, and there still kind of is a lot of tension just around the horrible people in this industry, and then having that tension be released, maybe not like completely released, but just like having an incident that you can point to and kind of be like, okay, let's put all of our energy towards this because, hey, this isn't just speculation anymore. Millions of people saw this. This is bad. Let's shame him for doing something bad. um, just to kind of project onto him all of our thoughts and opinions on everything going on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Um, is he a victim? I don't know. Hot take: is he a victim, or is Chris Rock the victim because he did get slapped, physical assault?
Oh, wait. So the question is Will Smith or Chris Rock a victim?
Yeah, is Will Smith the victim here?
Couldn't both be.
I mean,
My argument is neither. You said something wild, and actions have repercussions
but you shouldn't have slapped him
on camera.
on camera.
I will maintain that.
live in front
on
in a
live
on a black tie
television
event.
On live
in an
television.
In a
audience
black tie event.
of thousands.
Not the moment to get your retribution.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to move into the spoiler category of
Yes,
the
please.
movie?
Because there's something important for y'all that I'm going to spoil from the third movie. But clearly you're here now, so whatever. Um, that helps. That helped me going in, and I'm curious to know what your opinions were or how you took, like, literally the first act of the movie, given something that happens in the third movie. So in the third movie is when we realize that Mike has this illegitimate son, and the son is a part of the cartel. So is the mom, and like she was like in the drug business, and it's like, okay, like, the yin and yang and that whole thing. But at the end of the third movie, as like tensions rising, the action's coming up, she literally casts a spell. Like she's like a bruja and like that whole thing. And there's like there's this supernatural element that gets introduced in the bad boy lore where like she's like definitely doing magic. And it's not like Harry Potter levels of magic, but it's like she prays, I think, for like a thunderstorm, and then it happens out of nowhere pretty much. And I'm kind of fuzzy on the details, but she does a supernatural thing. And I was been curious since then. I was like, we've kind of now we're opening the door. And in the same way like with the Fast franchise, we're like, the first movie was about people stealing cars. And then we get to a space where we're jumping over dams and we're driving cars in space.
And now they're in space.
And now we're in space with
Now
duct tape spacesuits.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers, but like that. So I was like, okay, we got literal bruja happening. What's next? And to see like the moment where Marcus like has his heart attack and like goes to the afterlife and all that stuff, and like get incorporated. It felt like a very natural progression. But I'm curious how that felt for y'all.
I thought it was metaphorical, all if not most death is just like, oh, he's having an out of body experience. Even the kind of like the really cool transition of Martin Lawrence hitting the floor and then immediately splashing through water.
Yeah.
And then yeah, just all of that being very artsy and metaphorical. At least that's what I took it as. If you're saying that he actually went to the great beyond and actually saw his commissioner, which is funny because they were on the beach at the climax of the movie. They were on that beach with that same like dried up tree.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't think it to be any sort of like difference or any sort of like, oh, this is real. I just thought it was like, oh, okay, this is just how they're choosing to tell his experience in the afterlife.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in that sense, it made it like real because it's like that is happening, and like based on how he was like his reaction, like once he like woke up. The recap was really helpful because otherwise I would have just like been super confused with like the turn that it was going in. The only thing I didn't like, I did love the transition of him falling into water. I then just didn't love the follow-up shots of him clearly not actually underwater with like the effects looking at, because it just like it was one of the very few times in the movie where it took me out and I was just like, this looks bad. That was like the only kind of like con that I would have from it. Like everything else, it was either like funny or made sense or like, carried the story forward. Yeah.
Sweet. I appreciate that.
So you're saying that uh, kind of like what Fast 9 tried to do with like kind of calling to the fact that this is like a movie and there's like a bit of like goofy campiness to it. Bad Boys 3 is like legitimizing a lot of these like ex machinas and like superhuman things that like would happen
It
in an
definitely
action
opened the
movie.
door. Yeah, it definitely opened the door for it to a point where like the whole rest of the movie, and this was like my one gripe with the movie, or like my one major gripe, is that Marcus having gone to the afterlife and come back, like the whole "it's not your time yet" and all that, and him like having the sudden enlightenment, it was kind of jarring to see that there would be sometimes in the same scene he's a very enlightened, like nothing matters, and then he's got a gun in somebody's face, like you're gonna tell us what we need to know, and I'm like, those don't seem like the same person to me. Um, but yeah, it's I loved seeing that incorporated.
I would challenge and say that maybe he is such a gun wielding kind of like bad cop, good cop because he knows that it's not his time, right? Like when he walks across the intersection
Oh,
to get
yeah,
to the place, he's like, "Hey, watch this," and he's just like blatantly just walks because it's not his time. So if he's just like this crazy, run and gun kind of dude, he has that in the backside, like, okay, well, let me just do this because it's cool and I know I'm not gonna die, or at least he has the idea that he's not gonna die.
yeah. I think because the other thing is in the Bad Boys franchise, that has always been Mike Lowry's thing, Will Smith's character. That's always been his thing of being like,
Mm.
he's gonna pull out the gun first. He's gonna like he's the shoot first, ask questions later guy. And so anytime Marcus leans in that world, I'm like, that's not your lane. And then especially after he has this enlightened thing, I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm expecting pacifist, but I'm also seeing you like willing to go and do whatever. Like there should not be a scene, in my opinion, where he pulls his gun before Will Smith does.
Mm.
And that happened a couple times.
So for that, I would say Will Smith is dealing with. It looked like
Oh, true.
he was like you said, he was cursed, I guess, because there was like a bit of a flashback when he was like on the bed with his wife, and he was like, "Oh, you always take the ones I love," or something like that. And he has multiple panic attacks, and so I guess not knowing how Will Smith is in the other movies, but if he is now clearly like on his left foot, like just clearly not the same Will Smith he was before, at least it looked like to me that there were reasons to why he's doing things now differently, if they are any different. To me, it just looks like he's dealing with, or not dealing with, but he's worried about his wife because he just got married.
Hmm.
He is worried about his kid because he now has to like look out for him, and he's also getting older. I mean, they're both pretty old, even though that their hairlines are kind of like dyed because it looked like they were dyed. I'm sorry.
When I tell you movie magic, no, they had to be. They absolutely had to be. I was like, there's no way Martin Lawrence has a better lineup than me. I refuse to believe that.
But like Martin Lawrence has a heart attack, one of those Widowmaker heart attacks because he's pretty up there, and Will Smith is having panic attacks because he's pretty up there. Even though in the movies they're still meant to be these like gun-toting bad boys, running gun cops. IRL they're old, and so in the narrative they should also be older, and so just
Yeah,
all of that weight of being at this age doing these superhuman things, or not superhuman, but like these extraordinary things, kind of like weighs
yeah.
down on you when you get up there.
I mean, the helicopter sequence, that's pretty superhuman. Like, this cage is falling. I'm going to grab the rope and anchor myself on the ceiling of the helicopter so that my friend's son does not die. That's a lot. I'm like, there's no way you have good enough knees to like survive that impact. Oh, uh, I appreciate it, and I didn't rewatch anything leading up to this, but I did appreciate the moment with I think towards the beginning where they have that shootout. I think in the convenience store,
Mm,
and the oh no, this was I think at the party later, but like where the jelly beans were like flying everywhere, and then like the Kool-Aid or whatever. Uh, it reminded me a lot of the ecstasy moment in Bad Boys 2,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, these feel like smarter callbacks. We're not doing beat for beat the same exact thing, but we're doing something very similar. So now it's not drugs. It's like he can't indulge in like sugar, and
Sugar.
now,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that was really really well done.
Yeah, the other thing too, and they went to it just the right amount of times, was like one, the mental health aspect, which I appreciate, but then the broken father son relationship, and then like with like Martin Lawrence basically serving as the, and it felt honestly, at least when Davina and I were talking about it, like this was directed at the audience of like, this is how like these relationships sometimes go, and that like when they have this reaction, this is why. And it very much just kind of felt in that same way of like, okay, well, he's saying that because of this, and then you're saying this because of that, and then that's gonna how like make him feel. And it was like, it was done in a funny enough way, where it wasn't like too preachy, and for me it did work. And then also then tied in with the like when Martin Lawrence is like, no, I need like the bad, like I need the bad Mike, like I need you
Yeah,
to like
yeah.
wake up and like be who you are. And it was like still enough of to where like it didn't come off as like preachy, and was still like enough of there is a real message behind it, and it is also still comedy.
I didn't know that the jelly bean and the Kool-Aid was a callback, because that was probably the most uncomfortable I felt throughout the movie. Just like slow motion, Martin Lawrence getting Kool-Aid in his mouth and then like dripping
Splashing on his
underneath.
tongue.
Yeah, it's like, ugh.
Which not a drop got on his shirt. He had a white shirt on. I was like, I wonder how this is gonna go.
Movie magic.
Love to see it.
Also, I don't know about your theater, but the cut to when they're like in the backwoods and they're like stealing the people's clothes, and it cuts down and it just says certified white boy. I've never heard some people laugh harder. That was, for a lot of the crowd, the funniest thing they've ever seen in their entire
Yeah,
lives.
my theater was relatively tame. It was kind of a shocker, because you guys are saying that y'all theaters had fun. I did go to a matinee. It was like a maybe like a 3:30 screening, but it was packed. It wasn't sold out, but it was like pretty packed. At least when we checked on the app, like it
Yeah.
was hard for us to get good seats. But yeah, no one was really goofing and gaffing. There were
I saw
chuckles,
it.
but there wasn't like roaring like, oh, ha ha ha.
I saw it on a weekend night, and it was
Mm.
I went to like a mall that was like really close where we live. I will never do that again. Parking was a disaster. But like it was basically a completely full theater, and it was like hooting, hollering, not in a distracting way,
Hmm.
and very much just like everyone is loving it, except for the family next to me had like a 5-year-old child.
Oh.
It was just like, and he didn't want to be there, and it was like a whole thing, and like he was crying at times and just getting ignored, and it wasn't like distracting, but it definitely was like this this shouldn't be happening type deal.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm kind of kicking myself because there are times like when Little Mermaid came out last year, I made it a point to see it at the Cinemark at the Baldwin Crenshaw Mall.
Ayo,
And
shout out to
because I was like,
that's where Will Smith went. No.
that's where he went.
Was it that Cinemark? I
Yes.
was
Yes, it
wondering. Yeah,
was.
yeah.
I was like, I know that entrance anywhere. And normally, like when it's a film like this, I will make sure that at least one of my viewings is at that theater. And I just timed it wrong. And
Mm,
I mean, there was
oh,
no way I was going to go to the 6 o'clock showing of the movie because I think he went on like a Friday, right? Or yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, that would have been really cool to like have seen him
That was
there.
a really cool video.
hmm. I love that theater. Shout out to the Magic Johnson movie theater. That's what it used to be called.
Oh yeah,
And then it was
man.
called the Rave Cinema for a minute.
I haven't thought of rave cinema. I have to imagine they've gone out of business, but I remember seeing that a ton when I was a kid. Rave cinema.
Hmm.
Also, in terms of Will Smith footage, um, I know I talked about this with you offline, Vaughn. You hadn't seen it. Jose, have you seen the behind the scenes clip of the first person shooter scene in the movie?
That's something that I was gonna mention when we got there, but yeah, I hate that I saw it,
Yeah.
because yeah, I loved it. I loved it in that finale, but the clip on Twitter is the clip of the movie. It was
But
so
it's also
fucking
cooler.
unfortunate.
I also thought it looked cooler
Yeah,
on Twitter in a way,
yes, for
just like
sure,
Oh,
for
unfortunately.
sure.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I thought so in the opening scene in the liquor store when the guy's gun is like in Martin Lawrence's face, it's in that similar first person perspective. And I was like, "Oh, okay." because they decided to publish this clip, I'm assuming they're gonna have a lot of these perspectives.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And then when Reggie is playing like Battlefield, you're like, oh, this guy's a Marine. This guy's playing video games. Obviously, video games are a thing in this world where people can, people know about them. So maybe they'll be like that influence when it comes to any sort of action. But it really was just the end, and it was like two scenes where it was in the first person perspective, which I mean, hey, maybe they'll expand upon it. Maybe other movies will see this and be like, oh, let's add this in our movie, because I loved it. It was so much fun. It was great. I love the quick pan and the mechanism that they have to like actually achieve that. It's so much fun. So cool. I did see
I
that.
gotta
It was
check it
great.
out.
Yeah, because Will, and just to kind of explain to people, don't listen to this if you want to find the video yourself. You just type in Will Smith scene Bad Boys on
4.
YouTube. I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll figure it out. He's controlling the camera. Like he's literally like himself is doing it on both perspectives, which is so cool. And it looked awesome. And it looks cool in the movie too. But what that added context of then when you see how he's the one that's actually controlling and swiveling the camera while somehow not looking at a camera that is like immediately in his face but controlling it is
He's
like
a good actor.
really
He's a superstar.
really cool and absolutely like superstar. And it's one of those things of like it's just like the things of like setting the bar of like how much like when you think of like certain action movies that are just like continuing to set like and push things forward, and like what things were like after the Matrix or after John Wick, and like this is something that I've never seen before in a movie. And like there's been like Hardcore Henry and like other first person like movies, but it's like this was something in like a big budget movie where I've never really seen anything like that. And it's gonna like I'm curious to see what the next iteration is. Similar like the John Wick 4 spoilers for a scene in John Wick 4, but the top down scene
Yeah.
in that where it's just like this is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this before.
Which apparently was not a reference to that one video game. I just blanked on the name. What the fuck was it called? Hotline Miami. Everyone thought it was a Hotline Miami reference because
Which
he
it looked
has
exactly
the
like it. Yeah.
yeah, and he has the dragon breath, so you see like the shotgun blast. But the
Yeah.
director said that it was a reference to another thing. But I'm assuming that other thing was referenced by Hotline Miami, but not explicitly, but more like a hand down. But yeah, and
That just feels wrong. Like, yes, it was. I know you're saying it wasn't, but you're lying.
something that I also loved in this movie that I'm glad maybe Michael Bay had a like influence on: drone shots. Give me action movies with drones. You cannot get the intimacy of just like a full blown action sequence without a drone shot. Like Ambulance had a shit ton of drone shots, and that was a Michael Bay movie. This one had two, which I wish they had more, just because of how great a good drone FPV pilot can be when it comes to filming, and how like if you have a great pilot, how safe it actually is. People are concerned it's going to chop someone's hand off. It's not. If the pilot knows what they're doing and everything is choreographed and everything is set up in the right way, you have amazing sequences with drones. Bring them in everywhere. Even if you don't think you're going to use it, just bring it in anyway, and then just make it zoom across and make sure that like maybe it captures a couple of things, because when you review that footage, it's gonna look amazing. There's no way it's not gonna look amazing.
The only thing I think about when I see drones in shots is how loud they are. I don't know if there's like a way to silence, because I'm like, okay, immediately this is going to cost us so much more because we got to get the drone in for the shot, which is maybe saving us a little bit, but then we have to bring these people back to ADR, all of this. But yeah,
And,
I'm for it.
Well, at least in these two sequences, it was maybe like a needle drop, right? It wasn't like there wasn't any dialogue. If anything, were like some grunts.
Yeah.
But yeah, even in Ambulance, when they had drone shots, they did have to go back for ADR. But that was a big budget movie with Michael Bay, so they were just gonna do that.
No doubt. I think another weird thing that just thinking about shots and angles, there were too many Dutch angles in this for me.
Mm-hmm.
Early on, too, the one where it's like the son in the prison. I was just like, you didn't need to do that. What? That like totally threw me off.
But isn't that like a wasn't that like a thing in isn't that like a staple in the Bad Boys franchises?
It definitely is in the old Mission Impossible movies. I know that. I don't remember if the older. It is very like 90s, 2000s.
It
Yeah.
is also a very Michael Bay thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's the homage then for him. I don't know, but it that took me out of it. I was like, really?
Mhm.
We're okay. I guess I'll lean my head, whatever. Um, and yeah, that sequence with Reggie in the house, that
Ooh,
action.
I have thoughts.
So I'll just say this: I appreciated seeing it. It also closed the loop for me on the future of this franchise. In that the in the last movie, we got to see a lot of all we knew was that Will Smith is chasing after this one woman. We know that she has history with him, and then they kind of reveal that like her dragon is the son, and this young guy is Will Smith's son. That like kind of gets revealed in the movie, and so we and he captures him at the end, and then Armando gets into prison, and I'm like, great. In the fourth one, which won't be called Bad Boys for Life because they wasted it on this movie. In the fourth movie, the son has to come back. There's no way he doesn't come back. And so when he did, I was like, okay, incredible. This
Family.
now gives us a third bad boy. And then with this whole sequence with Reggie, I was like, oh, and now we're ready for the next iteration. Like we have our younger stars,
Ah,
our younger pair, like that
Definitely.
are not like yes, the one is a literal son, but like there's like the son element of like the bad boys that and these guys are young enough and fit enough to actually do the crazier sequences and action stuff. We're back. Bad Boys is
Reggie
back in a
was
big way.
moving. Reggie
Yeah.
was those when he was in the kitchen and like he was moving.
hmm
Yeah.
If that was him and not a double, which it felt like it was him though.
I'd say
But yeah.
so.
my thoughts are it too much reaction shots. If you were gonna give me so in my video game brain, you're in this like hub with like six different monitors plugged into your ring cameras, and so you'll have all these perspectives. So give me like a Rainbow Six style kind of like third person. Let me watch him do the clearing and let me watch him do the action. Don't zoom in on it, show me it, zoom out, and then show me them reacting. And sometimes it wasn't even like a zoom out; it was just a straight jump cut to them reacting, like, oh, did you see that? Oh, that was so cool!" Like, yeah, we all saw it. Yeah, we all thought it was cool. Let us enjoy the moment, like
Yeah, I get
in the
you.
back. That was my only gripe with that. I wish that they just let us envelop more of the action, like to say that John Wick is causing this renaissance of action. This would have been a time where you could have given us the John Wick action. Just
Yeah.
leave the camera stationary, or if anything, like use like that perspective of like the ring camera being in the corner, and just let us see him do it. And if we do want to get more intimate with it, then great. But just let us see the action, and don't let him do something. And then as he's like turning around to do something else, cut over to Will Smith reacting like, "Oh, oh!" Like we all saw it. We were all there. It was great. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I get you.
But yeah, the I forget what I think it was a Deadpool joke in Deadpool 2 where they're like, we need young enough actors who can carry this franchise for another 10 years. But to your point, Vaughn, yeah, the bad boys are back, I guess, and there's now going to be hopefully more. Well, it depends on the dynamic between Reggie and Armando. Like, do they have that sort of like rapport with each other that Martin Lawrence and Will Smith have to really carry the franchise? Because if it's action for action's sake, then I can see it maybe getting bland. But if they really do plan on setting them up as the next generation, maybe Bad Boys 5 will have like a four Bad Boys,
Yeah.
like the two parents and the two sons, and then Bad Boys 6 will have just them alone, but they're kind of like good cop, bad cop, kind of like buddy cop. Then maybe Bad Boys 7, they're like a bit better. But uh to my point from earlier, it's about family, man. It brings it back to family.
It's always about family.
It's always about family. You know, even the U.S. Marshal lady who was like, "How could I forgive you for killing my dad?" Like she forgave him, and so in the next movie when they have to go ask for a favor, she'll be like, "Oh, well, I still can't forgive you, but I'll do you this one favor." And at the end of
Right.
the movie, they'll be part of the family, and they'll be at the barbecue with the beers and the chicken, and you know, they'll say grace in front of the Miami skyline.
Don't you mean the LA? Oh, I see what you did. Going through my notes. Anything else stick out for y'all? Oh, question. Do all villains just die via headshot? Is that like
Headshot
the bad boy thing?
or literally in Bad Boys. My bad. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Well, how the mom died? Was it a headshot?
I don't remember if it was a headshot. I do know she wound up. They were in some giant abandoned building,
Yeah.
and she's like super high up, and like the floor fell through
Mm.
because of like the fire and stuff that was happening in the building. But I can't remember if there was like a shot there. But there were so many headshots in this movie, and then I thought about how Johnny Tapia died in the second one.
The other thing is the villain being the dad from Entourage or not Entourage, Euphoria. Just like he's a great villain. Yeah. If you've never seen Euphoria, then you wouldn't know. But,
Isn't that the guy from Bones?
I'd never watched Bones.
Ever watched Bones?
I've never seen either, so.
Oh, he looked very familiar to me. I thought he was the guy from Bones.
The only time I've ever seen him in anything was Euphoria, but let me see if I can.
Oh wait, no, you're talking about the white guy or the
Yeah.
Eric Dane.
Yeah, Eric Dane.
Dane. Yeah, no. I was thinking of the politician,
Oh, Mr. Fantastic.
Mr. Fantastic. Yeah,
that was
not,
him.
Not from
Okay.
Bones. Okay. Yeah.
I got frustrated when I saw him because I was like, "Oh, this dude's definitely bad. You're not going to cast like a somewhat decent actor, like unless this guy's going to be like a villain." And I was really frustrated.
I mean, I hate that I went to film school, but I called it as soon as he came on screen. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
great! They're making a point to introduce this guy and this person who clearly has a history with Will Smith. This guy's a bad guy, hands down."
Did not like it.
Would y'all, just along that line, would y'all ever want to trade back your knowledge for the enjoyment? You know what I mean?
Yes.
If it was from an enjoyment standpoint, yes. But if I would lose appreciation, no.
You would lose the appreciation.
Yeah, then no.
Okay.
You would lose the appreciation, you said?
Yeah, that's the setup I'm asking. Like, you can get back that freshness of like, you don't have the film knowledge, so you can just enjoy the thing and like not clock that like, oh, this is gonna be a bad guy. But then you would also lose the other like appreciations of like, we're talking about the shots and the angles and like considering drone stuff and all that.
Dare I say a lot of that would be still picked up, if that makes sense. Because you can still appreciate something, and then if you see it long enough, you'll start noticing like just the pattern recognition. You know, humans are great at pattern recognition, but I think I would still trade my knowledge because I know that I can develop that appreciation as long as I'm not like some brain rot who just sits in a theater looking at my phone.
But like that's what.
If you're saying that I have
to.
That's the version of you that's waiting.
Then no, I wouldn't.
Because you become like at that point, it's like you're just a generic audience member viewer. So it's like maybe you are then that person that like still finds a way, or you just
oh yeah, it was cool.
Yeah,
and like that's all you have to say about it.
Yeah, you're like someone that's like, yo, Morbius, man, did you see Morbius? And then it's just like
he flew.
And if you like Morbius, more power to you.
Morbius power to you.
It's Morbin time.
It's Morbin time.
We're at the 2-hour mark. So the only other thing is maybe if we just want to jump into the Will Smith, like, what does this mean? Legacy
sure.
talk. Yeah.
Well, what does this mean for Will Smith? Is Will Smith back?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like,
Will Smith never left, and Will Smith never left. He can't make a bad movie.
Gemini Man, Bright, Aladdin aside.
You don't like Aladdin? Whoa.
You didn't like Gemini Man?
No, I did not like Gemini Man. No, I did not like Bright. I did like him in Suicide Squad. It's a bad movie, but that's not because of him. He's great in it. But no, I did not like Gemini Man.
I wish I could have seen it in a movie theater that had it at 120 frames, because I remember reading that this was one of the only movies to have shot at a high frame rate.
I don't like movies in high frame rate, like the Hobbit movies. No.
Is there a hold on, was that like actually high frame rate, or was it like a remastered, like AI kind of like
upscale kind of thing?
Yeah, because like when like a TV does like the interlacing, yeah, that's bad too. But if the movie was filmed in high frame rate, then it'll look good. At least the only movie that I've seen in a higher refresh rate was Avatar 2. And I loved it for that, but Avatar 2 was too much sometimes.
Yeah, like I The Hobbit, I don't know for certain, but my guess is with just how much money they spent on those movies is that they did it, and like how like Peter Jackson is, like my guess is that it was done kind of legit. To me, it like almost just like kind of takes me out. It's like I'm so used to watching a movie, and I'm not someone that like, I don't clock frame rates. It's not like a thing of like, I can't watch something and be like, oh, that's 30 frames, that's 60 frames. Like even like when I play video games, if I play video games on 120 frames per second, I don't actually notice. But like if I'm playing worse at a shooter and I like check, I'm like, oh, I'm not at 120 frames. So like I don't have the ability to really like see the difference for whatever reason. I don't know why. But I remember learning after the fact that The Hobbit was shot that way. And I remember watching The Hobbit and being like, this looks so weird. It looked like so unnatural to me. And I've always just attributed that as why. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just like, I'm not good at it. I can't. I'm sure if I like took like 5 minutes to watch videos, like breaking it down, it would click a lot more, but it just doesn't.
What's so interesting to me is that I do notice frame rate differences very clearly, but I don't notice CGI differences as much. So whenever you're like, oh, that CGI was so terrible, I'm like, was it? But my eyes can see like, oh yeah, this was like shot at a higher frame rate or not.
Yeah. No,
shout out to
eyes
me
are
who
weird.
Both.
And in my format, you are literally in between me and Dylan, so that does work out beautifully.
But yeah, what does this mean for Will Smith?
I think it means he's close to being back. I don't think he's back yet. But he's very close. I think another film with a wider and whiter audience intended will be the real test.
Yeah, like I think it for me, it's someone had mentioned this that I saw, like one of the film critic I saw. It's like it depends on, are they going to go with an original story, or are they going to go with another sequel? Like if they do like an iRobot 2, or like I know there's like an I Am Legend thing that's like being brought back up or something.
He died though.
Like if they but the new one is the director's cut. He lives. Yeah, and they're going to use that.
How?
I think it's just a different ending. Like they just do a different ending. I don't think he like kills himself. It's like something else that happens. Yeah.
Which I think is what happens in the book. Don't quote me.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it was. Not the director's cut. It's like it's the book.
No, you are right though. There is there was an unreleased ending or whatever that like, or alternate ending where he does live, and they still like dip out. But that was more in line with what happened in the book.
Yeah. So it's like if they do something in that standpoint where it like, it depends. I don't think you go the original route just yet. I don't think it's like he's back yet enough to go the original route. I do think if you go sequel, but like he's had a few not home runs. Like he's had King Richard, you know, Concussion people seem to dig, but like I didn't think Emancipation was all that great, and like I you know, I didn't think Focus was all that great. I know that was like honestly pretty long ago at this point, but it's one of those things of I thought he was amazing, and if we can get a little bit more of like action star Will Smith, I'm all for it.
Wait, so I just want to go back. What were you saying about King Richard?
King Richard was good. I'm saying King Richard, he did good. Like he won an Oscar, and it was like a very well received movie. Like so,
Right.
he's still obviously clearly, but there's been like before it was like when we talked about it off pod, like the Will Smith, you know, run from like 95 with Bad Boys. It's Bad Boys, Independence Day, Men in Black, Enemy of the State, you know, Legend of Bagger Vance, Ali, Men in Black 2,
You
like
somehow haven't
iRobot.
mentioned Wild Wild West, and I forgive you, but
I'm be honest, yeah, no, I was like 4 when that movie came out, so I don't know anything about that movie.
Hey, so was I, but I saw Wild Wild West in Spanish on TV.
Okay.
But hey,
okay, Wild Wild West, Hitch.
Thank you.
Hitch,
Pursuit of Happiness, I Am Legend, Hancock, like just banger after banger after banger after banger, and instead it was just like some of these are going to miss a little bit. And
yeah,
but you know, I'm an optimistic person, and I would hope that this is like, you know, back on the upswing.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think another franchise tag on or something, a Hancock 2 or whatever.
Hey, yo, bring him onto the Fast family.
No, he needs hits.
We don't need another star. And the Fast movies are hits.
Those are hits.
We're not going to keep doing this, Dylan. You're going to watch your mouth on this podcast.
It would not. What? Honestly, in your heart of hearts, would you rather him do one of his own, like a Hancock 2 or an I Am Legend 2,
Wild
or
Wild
is
West
he
2.
Wild Wild West 2, Hitch 2, Shark Tale 2, whatever it is? Or would you be like he's the fourth person in this movie? And I know he wouldn't be like the fourth; he'd be like right up there. But it's like one of those things of just like he's an auxiliary piece in the Fast movies. Like I'd rather him have his own thing.
I'd rather him have his own thing, but I do know that if they did incorporate him, as they do with everybody, what happens in the Fast franchise is that you are the villain first, which means you're going to get a good chunk of the screen time, and then you're a part of the family.
And if they're going to make at least 2 more, that's perfect.
They're going to make 2 more? I thought it was just 1 more.
I thought it was just 2. If it's just the one, then maybe not. But if it's 2,
I thought it was 2, but that includes the one that we just got.
Yeah.
I thought it was 3 with the one we just got. I don't want this franchise to end, all right?
Now, Jose, I support this franchise. Not quite as much as you do, but I do support it. We're reaching a little bit.
Yeah, we are. It's a little too late to get Will Smith in there. If Will Smith was maybe like in the first or second one, but no,
they're calling
the next one too big.
Fast 10 Part 2. Fuck off. That's Fast 11, and that's crazy.
No, because it's a
No.
Well, did you see Fast 10 or Fast X?
No.
See, so you don't know. Like
you don't know, dude. You don't know.
I can't wait for our Fast franchise review.
Okay.
So
anyways, we're 2 hours in. I don't have time to. What do you think about Will Smith's future? Go.
Promising.
Great.
All right.
What do we rate this movie, gents? What's the grade?
Solid 7. Solid 7 on the positive scale, because it's not like it's too campy that it's bad, and it's not it has its merits. It has its great cinematography moments. Just fun summer movie, classic practical effects, the works. We just talked about it for like an hour and a half. So solid 7.
Right on.
7.5, B-.
Great. I'm going solid B with the opportunity for extra credit if you I don't know. There's an opportunity for extra credit, maybe more action. Oh, make
More
Marcus's
drones.
character more consistent. To
More
revisit
drones.
I'm imagining
Marcus's
being
arc.
a student and getting that feedback and being like, if you make it better, you get extra credit. And then I'm just like,
I'll just take the B.
It'll be a B then, I guess, because I don't have time
Yeah.
for this. PSATs are like 2 weeks from now.
More drones. Give me more drones.
Awesome sauce.
yeah, more first person shooter scenes. If that Reggie scene was first person shooter,
Oof, man.
Ooh.
That should have
if
been.
they had
that should have
mixed
been
like
first person.
the security cam of like Rainbow Six
Mhm.
Siege with first person elements, that would have been
Mhm.
nice.
Well done.
Well, hey, that wraps up our first episode back of the After School Cinema Club. Make sure to follow us on socials. Everything will be down in the description, down in the show notes.
Come see my
Um,
show.
Come see, go see Vaughn. Vaughn is performing in LA. The website will be tagged in our IG, which I was meant to ask. You should use our IG if you have the login to promote it.
I do, and I didn't want to overstep, but now I will. Thank you.
No, do it.
Overstep.
Do it. Yeah. Any final thoughts, boys?
We'll see y'all next week. I'm excited. Happy to be back. Dylan?
Class dismissed.